Hello, hello! Welcome back to Brenda's Books. This is Season 2, Episode 24, and today we are on Chapter 28 of Sarah's War. Here we go. Chapter 28, You Should Have. All is set up for Sam's transfusion in a perfect little spot at the foot of the mountain. The few scattered trees around me make it feel somewhat secluded, but not entirely exclusive from the rest of the camp. I hang lanterns from several tree branches, so I have plenty of light to work through the dark night. Sam lies on a gurney with an IV in one arm. A second gurney and IV is set up for a blood donor. I have all the necessary tools and supplies on a handy little old cart. Everything is ready, except for one minor detail: a blood donor. "Page me if you need me, Sergeant," I say to Sam. He doesn't respond, but I know he hears me. Feeling anxious and frustrated, I walk out of the lamplight into the darkness. I pass a loud crowd of soldiers circling around a smoky campfire. I turn on my flashlight and continue walking through the shadows. Other soldiers are hammering stakes in the ground and setting up their tents. Finally, I reach the aid truck parked on the thick grass. Randy and Molly are sitting in the back, their feet dangling over the edge. "Nobody in this entire company has a B-negative blood type," I announce before I reach them. "I do. I'll donate some blood," Molly offers. "Really?" I exclaim, surprised and relieved. "Sure," she cries, hopping down to the ground. "Why didn't you tell me before?" I question. "Molly, you can't," Randy objects, not giving her a chance to answer. "Why not?" Molly challenges, putting her hands on her hips. "You don't weigh enough," Randy says with a worried expression. Molly turns to look at me. "Do you ever give blood, Doctor?" she asks. "Not usually," I admit. "See?" Randy says, as if I had just validated his concern. I know what he's worried about. People who don't weigh much often faint after giving blood, and it takes much longer for them to gain their normal strength back. I don't want that to happen to Molly, but it's either that or let Sam die. Molly puts her hands on her hips again. "I weigh 107. Is that too light, Doctor?" Molly inquires. "It's borderline," I mutter. "Well, it's settled then," Molly concludes. "I'll be the donor." "Molly, don't," Randy pleads, jumping down to the ground. "Somebody else will do it." "There isn't anyone else," Molly says defiantly. "Do you want the sergeant to die?" "No, but nothing," Molly interjects. "I can decide what I do with my own blood." Randy sighs and runs his fingers through his scarlet hair. "Fine, it's your choice." "Why, thank you, sir, for allowing me to make my own choices." Randy rolls his eyes and spins around, putting his hands on either side of his head. "Let's go," Molly says to me. Molly does just fine donating blood, until she tries to walk afterward. The moment she stands, she blacks out and falls to the ground. Randy, who has been standing by the entire time, races to her side. "Molly, are you okay?" he asks anxiously. Molly is nothing but a lump on the ground. "Why did you let her do this?" Randy asks me angrily. "She wanted to do it," I remind him. "Let's get her back on the bed." Randy lifts Molly back to the gurney. "You knew this would happen," Randy accuses. "She's the only one who can help save the sergeant's life, Randy. When she wakes up, I suggest you give her some applause rather than disappointment. She did a good thing." Randy meets my gaze looking totally baffled. Without another word, he rushes out of the lamplight and into the shadows. I stare after him until his figure is no longer visible. "Knock, knock," says a deep voice. My heart leaps at the familiar sound. "Hello, Colonel. You actually announced yourself." Jack smiles warmly. "I hoped you would approve of that. How is everything going with the, blood?" I grin at his lack of words. "Good. I did a direct transfusion," I explain, gesturing toward the 2 IVs. One is still inserted into Sam's arm. Jack stares at the sergeant lying flat on his gurney, now sound asleep. His breathing is deep and heavy. "Although," I continue, "he still needs more blood. And Nurse Sanders here fainted after giving him some." I glance toward Molly, surprised to see her black eyes staring back at me. I want my own bed, she croaks. You better not walk for about a half hour, I tell her. I'll take you, Jack offers. Molly's eyes enlarge as Jack makes 2 long strides to her bedside. With greater ease than should be humanly possible, he lifts her swiftly into his arms as if she's nothing but a feather. A wide smile spreads across Molly's face. I grin too as I recall the sensation. Don't go away, Jack says to me. I'll be right here, I promise, as the 2 of them disappear into the darkness. I pull out some disinfectant wipes and commence scrubbing the needles I just used. How intriguing Jack is. It's like he has 2 personalities. Jack, the lieutenant colonel, and just Jack. Jack, the lieutenant colonel, is strong, confident, domineering, dangerous. I'm angry with Jack the colonel, but I absolutely crave Jack. Just Jack. Before I know it, there he is, standing beside me again. It seems every time I see him, he's better looking than the time before. Jack folds his arms and leans his back against a large oak. Its leaves rustle in the wind in response. What a day, he says casually. I nod. You can say that again, I agree, pulling off the cover to Molly's gurney. You're amazing, you know, Jack compliments me. I glance up at him and find that familiar pulling gaze. The look that melts me right to the ground. Why do you say that? I wonder, opening a new bed covering. Jack shrugs. You're just brilliant. The way you keep saving lives. He says it casually, but I feel like he's giving me a bronze star. I grin back at him. It's what I'm made for, I guess. Jack smiles, his expression full of admiration. So, he says, his tone changing slightly, why have you been avoiding me all evening? I turn back to covering the gurney. I've been a little busy, you know. Removing bullets, blood transfusions. Just small stuff, really, I say, grinning up at him again. Jack laughs mildly, and then focuses his gaze on me once more. Yes, but you've also been avoiding me, Sara. How would I do that, considering the way you sneak up on me all the time? I hedge. Jack laughs lightly again, and then gives me a mischievous look. I thought I remember you saying you didn't play the guess what I'm thinking game. I'm telling you what I'm thinking, I defend, opening my arms. Then tell me this, says Jack, shifting his position on the tree. Are you angry with me? I try to come up with something clever to dodge his question with, but nothing comes to mind. I stammer. Jack looks at me like he knows exactly what I'm trying to do. Just be honest, Sara. Yes, I suppose I am, I confess. Jack gives one solemn nod. Because I had to give you an order? There's no way around that, you know. No, that's not it at all, I clarify. I expect that. Jack furrows his brow. Then what is it? It's not something I should say to the lieutenant colonel. Say it to Jack, then, he suggests, still gazing at me with the same confused look. I laugh out loud. It's like he knows I assigned him double personalities. Jack's confusion becomes more pronounced. What? I shake my head. It's not worth explaining. Jack half sighs, half laughs. You are definitely a woman, he mutters. What does that mean? I chuckle. It means you drive me crazy, in good ways and bad. I laugh again. This is getting to be quite fun. Just tell me why you're angry, Jack persists. I sigh. Never mind, not fun anymore. You really want to know? I inquire dubiously. I wouldn't have asked if I didn't, says Jack. I laugh once. You're definitely a man. Jack smiles despite himself. What is it, Sara? Before I open my mouth, I know what I'm about to say is not a good idea, but I say it anyway. I'm angry at what your order was. There's no reason I should have had to stay in the bus for so long. If it weren't for that, I would have been able to get to Sam before 60% of his blood was spilled, and he wouldn't need transfusion after transfusion, sucking the life out of Molly. And we would be in Bridgetown by now, rather than the entire company being forced to waste a night here in the Forsaken Oaks. I take a deep breath, glad to be finished. Jack bows his head to the ground, then looks back up at me again, his mouth hard. You're blaming all of this on me. Is that what I'm doing? It can't be all Jack's fault. No, I'm not trying to do that, I placate. This is just how war is, but it wouldn't be as bad if... I trail off. Jack cocks his head. Remember that man who shot Sam and made it onto the bus? His tone is full of irritation, although he's trying to control it. I try not to grimace, but fail completely. And remember that man who shot the driver, just as I got to him? Jack reminds me. I respond with a silent stare. Well, Jack continues, we hadn't planned on those two being there, obviously. Our intel wasn't exactly right. I had no idea if there were more of them out there. Do you think I should have let my only doctor run around in the open, where there could have been an enemy we didn't have our hands on? Jack's tone has turned quite incredulous by this point. After those two men were out of the picture, there was absolutely no danger whatsoever, I deviate. Yes, but there could have been, Jack exclaims. I exhale sharply and shift my gaze toward the distant tents and then back to Jack again. Some ridiculous pride takes over me. I want to stop it, but I don't. As the lieutenant colonel, you should know that taking risks is necessary, I charge. Yes, but not stupid ones, Jack accuses. I clench my teeth. Saving a life is a stupid risk? Blast him. But he does have a point, and it makes me angrier. I knew I shouldn't have said anything about this. My cheeks flush and now I'm more embarrassed. So I turn away from him and face the IV stand. I'm sorry, Jack mutters behind me. That came out wrong. What I mean is, you're too important to the company to take any risk. I don't turn around. Jack sighs heavily. Come on, Sarah, you know that's what I meant. Okay, is all I say. This time I turn to face Sam. Jack takes a couple steps toward me. The wisest choice was to keep you safe, Sarah. I wish you wouldn't be upset about that. I don't know what to say. Get a grip, Sarah, I chastise myself. Get a grip. At that moment, Sam coughs. His eyes pop open and he clasps his chest with his hands. Are you in pain? I ask him. Sam nods, still coughing. I'll get you some morphine. That should help, I tell him. I guess I'll let you get back to work, Jack says behind me. I nod, still not facing him. I hardly hear his footsteps as he walks away. And that concludes Chapter 28. Don't worry, they'll make up sometime. Sooner or later. I hope you're enjoying Sarah's War, and I hope you come back next Thursday for Chapter 29, which is called Hero. And since Hero is a very short chapter, I will most likely also include Chapter 30, which is called Food and Flirts. If you want to find out more about Brenda's books, you can visit brendasbooks.net. Until next time, take care.